you are thinking about getting a new website for your clinic, one of the most useful questions that you can ask is not just how much it costs or even how long it takes, but actually what is involved in that process. And I think this matters a lot because clinic owners go into a website project knowing that they need something better, but not really knowing what happens once they say yes. So they might know that they want a more premium online presence or they want a website that helps bring in more inquiries. But what they often don't know is what the process is actually going to look like, how they are going to be needed, how they're going to be involved, what can delay the project, and what should be reasonably expected from the agency that they chose. So in this video, I want to break that down properly and talk through what is actually involved in building an aesthetic clinic website, what a good process should look like, and also where things can go wrong in that process if it's not handled well. So the first thing that I would say is that building a clinic website is not just a design task. It is very easy to think of it as we need a new website, so we need someone to make it look nice. And of course, the design really does matter, especially in aesthetics, where perception, trust, and first impressions are such a big part of whether someone wants to book with you. But a good website project goes much further than that. It is strategy, it's structure, content, design, development, testing, and then ongoing optimization after launch. And if any of those parts are unclear, rushed, or skipped, that is usually where the project starts to become frustrating. A good website project usually starts before any design work has happened. The first stage is where we have the discovery call, and this is where the agency should really be getting to understand you, your clinic, your business model, what's currently working, what's not working, and what you actually need your website to do. So for one clinic, the main goal might be creating a more premium online presence. For another, it might be about improving your ranking or visibility on Google. And for another, it might be about making treatments easier to understand for their patients. This stage matters because not every clinic needs the same type of website. A solo practitioner who is just starting out might need something very different from an established clinic with multiple treatments, a large team, and more ambitious SEO goals. And that's where Aesthetic Web can really support with some of those more established clinics. So the purpose of the discovery stage is not just to gather information, it's to work out what type of solution is actually the right fit for that business. A good discovery call should also uncover things like your current pain points, whether your existing website is underperforming, what treatments you want to focus on, whether SEO needs to play a certain role, whether you need an individual treatment page or concerns page. Maybe we're looking at what sort of patients you are trying to attract and where the business is heading over the next year, 2 years, and 5 years. It should also cover practical things like budget, timeline, how involved you want to be in the process, whether you already have branding and photography in place, and whether there are any internal limitations that could potentially affect the project. All of that really helps to shape it properly from the start. Once the discovery stage is done, the next step is usually recommending the right website or the solution for that business. And I think this is where honesty really matters. The recommendations should be based on your actual business model, your goals, and how you want to use the website. So if you are planning to invest in SEO, build out multiple treatment pages, and use the site as a general growth tool, then that needs to be reflected in the scope of the project. The next stage is onboarding. And this is where the project becomes much more detailed and much more structured. The purpose of onboarding is to gather everything needed for the website to be built properly and ensure that everyone is aligned from the get-go. If this part is rushed, the rest of the project usually becomes much harder to manage than it needs to be. A good onboarding meeting should cover the sitemap, the agreed page count, the overall project timeline, what images and videos are going to be used, what integrations are going to be on there, what content already exists, what needs to be written, what the website actually needs to achieve to perform commercially. And one of the most practical parts of the onboarding is the sitemap. The sitemap is just the structure of the website, so it shows what pages are going to exist and how they are going to connect together. And for aesthetic clinics, this really matters, particularly because we are following a patient journey here. A more developed clinic might need individual treatment pages, concern or condition pages, practitioner pages, blogs, location, and campaign landing pages. And if that structure is not clear from the start, the whole project can start to feel muddled later on down the line. So what content and assets are needed? So you will often need things like logos, fonts, colors, treatment information, your practitioner bio, testimonials, before and after images, clinic photography, social links, booking system, and access to your domain or current website if that is relevant. Once the onboarding is complete and the direction is clear, the project moves into the design. A common way to begin by designing is creating two homepage concepts first. And the reason for this is that the homepage is usually the one that sets the visual direction for the whole website project, and it gives the client something real to respond to before the rest of the site is built out. After the homepage is designed, the next step is usually to design the core page types. So rather than designing every single page from scratch, the agency will usually create one of the important pages and use those for the templates for the rest. For example, if your website has multiple treatment pages, they may design one treatment page first. If you have condition pages, they'll design that condition page first. This keeps the site really consistent, which is so important. A visitor should not feel like every page was invented separately. Good websites feel cohesive, and the consistency helps build trust. One of the biggest ways projects can get delayed is when they move into build before things have really been agreed. So once the homepage and the key core pages are approved, that is usually the point where the project moves into development. But if there is still uncertainty around the design or major decisions about content that are unresolved, moving into build too early often creates rework and frustration later on down the line. That is why a proper sign off is really important. It also helps give you guys the confidence in what's being built, and it gives us the clarity before development even starts. During the build stage, the approved designs are turned into a functioning website, and this is where the remaining pages are built out, the call to actions are applied, the forms are set up, images are optimized, and the whole site is made responsive across desktop, mobile, and tablet. Before the website goes live for the whole world to see, it should go through a full review and quality control stage. And this is where the client gets to review the built site, and the agency also checks everything really carefully. So that will include things like making sure that forms are working properly, pages are loading fast, images are optimized for speed, headings and structures are formatted correctly with any internal links, call to actions go to where they should, and the SEO foundations are built in properly. And this stage should never ever be rushed. A website should not go live just because the visuals are finished. It has to work as a complete system. I think one of the most useful parts to understand before the project is what can cause most delays. So the most common things are unclear scope, maybe missing content, too many decision makers, slow feedback, or major design changes being introduced after development has already started. But the good news is that most of these can be avoidable. When you have clear onboarding, agreed page count, approved structured pages, strong communication, most projects run more than smoothly. Once the website has passed the review, the next step is planning the launch. And this is where a go live meeting usually comes in. This is where things like hosting, your care plan arrangements, domain access, launch time, and any final technical checks are confirmed. It's also where the responsibilities are clarified so everybody knows what is happening before the site goes live. And this matters because launch should feel deliberate and definitely not rushed. A lot of clinic owners assume that once the website is live, the project is over. And in one sense, the build is complete, but in another sense, the next phase is really just beginning. Because once the website is live, it now has to do the job in the real world. It has to be visible, findable, and useful. And for most clinics, this is where the SEO becomes really important. That's why we always recommend a SEO boost after launch. This is a separate 3-month project focused in on improving your search performance of the website, helping Google to really understand the treatments that you offer and the locations that you want to rank for, as well as strengthening the foundation for your ongoing visibility. So if you are considering a new website for your clinic, one of the smartest things you can do is understand the process before you buy it. A good clinic website is not built through guesswork. It's built through process, clarity, and strong execution. And when that is handled well, the website becomes far more than just an online brochure. It becomes a serious growth tool for your business.